A campaign was launched with the ambition of severing one of Russia's most vital wartime fuel production arteries. But instead of relying on cruise missiles or massive barrages of firepower, Ukraine chose a different path. It planned a daring deep incursion into enemy territory, deploying long-range suicide UAVs to strike at the very heart of a key refinery unit. With a single, well-placed blow, the entire Russian supply system could be paralyzed. At exactly 8 a.m. on August 2, 2025, inside a concealed site within Ukrainian territory, the crew of the 14th Deep Tactical UAV Regiment finally received the long-awaited order, launch. Seconds later, a Liuti, Ukraine's long-range strike UAV, departed from its improvised launcher. Its target was clear: the electrostatic desalter unit and the Atmospheric Vacuum Distillation Unit 11 complex at the Nova Kubashevsk refinery. This unit was the first and most crucial stage of crude oil distillation and refining. Destroying it meant cutting the refinery's lifeblood, crippling the entire chain, and strangling Russia's wartime fuel supply. The strike came as direct retaliation, following a Russian artillery barrage in Kyiv that had killed at least 3 civilians. The operator, code-named Falcon, sat in the cramped cabin of a mobile control station deep inside Ukrainian territory. Before him stretched a multi-screen console displaying flight data, digital maps, and a live electro-optical feed from Liuti's nose camera. Pale green light from the monitors illuminated Falcon's face as he stared intently at the central display. Liuti glided silently above low cloud cover while Falcon's hands worked in perfect coordination, using both control stick and keyboard to fine-tune the UAV's speed and camera angle, ensuring that when the decisive moment came, the drone would hit the refinery's weak point with surgical precision. Liuti exploited every design advantage throughout its approach. More than 7 feet in length, with radar scattering contours and a composite absorption skin, it appeared as little more than background clutter to enemy radar. Flying between 100 and 165 feet in open terrain and dropping as low as 50 feet in valleys, it hugged riverbanks, skimmed forest lines, and massed itself within civilian infrastructure. Whenever it crossed radar zones, its dual INS GPS system switched to zigzag trajectories, creating unfavorable angles for Russian antennas and minimizing the chance of detection. In high-threat zones, it accelerated to 100 miles per hour, aligning its fuselage to further reduce radar return. Falcon often referred to Liuti as the invisible assassin in the sky. In its nose, the UAV carried a high-yield customized warhead, reinforced to pierce heat-resistant steel structures before releasing a devastating blast at over 93 miles per hour. Each passing minute carried it deeper into Russian territory. The refinery's Atmospheric Vacuum Distillation Unit 11, located within a maze of pipelines and storage tanks, played a critical role, splitting crude into fractions of kerosene, diesel, gasoline, and other fuels that powered Russia's convoys in Donetsk and Kherson, its Black Sea Fleet, and its frontline squadrons. 4 years, this unit had operated continuously, processing 160,000 to 176,000 barrels per day, or nearly 9 million tons per year. It was the beating heart of Russia's wartime fuel network. At 9:15 a.m., after more than an hour of weaving through radar shadows, Liuti crossed the final defense line and entered its direct approach. Through the UAV's electro-optical feed, the towering steel column of Unit 11 loomed into view, rising dozens of meters above a labyrinth of industrial scaffolds, pipelines, and tanks. It looked less like machinery and more like a massive heart pumping black blood through the refinery. Staircases spiraled its sides, workers moved across platforms, all unaware that disaster was seconds away. At 9:19 a.m., Liuti descended into its terminal attack vector. Its radar signature was no larger than a flock of birds, and it had slipped past every defensive layer. Ukraine's reconnaissance had already mapped Unit 11 in meticulous detail: the separators, high-pressure pipes, tank junctions, and distribution grids. The mission's true target wasn't the tower itself but the junction where the separator chamber met the main pipeline system, the weakest link where pressure and temperature peaked. At less than 656 feet from the target, refinery workers finally spotted the UAV, pointing, stumbling back, or diving for cover. But 4 seconds was not enough to react. At 9:20 a.m., Liuti locked onto the junction and drove forward at 93 miles per hour, a steel arrow with a compressed explosive core. On impact, its penetrator fuse unleashed a catastrophic overpressure blast. Shockwaves ripped through steel structures, welds tore apart, valves burst, and crude oil spewed into fire. The explosion's heat soared to 6,330 degrees Fahrenheit, incinerating the separator from within. Auxiliary tanks detonated one after another, fueling a chain reaction. In seconds, a towering fireball hundreds of feet high engulfed the refinery, while a massive plume of black smoke rolled into the sky above Nova Kubashevsk. Within 10 minutes, a single precision strike had erased Unit 11. Hours later, satellite imagery showed only a smoldering ruin where the distillation tower once stood. Main pipelines lay in fragments, tanks were warped, and the entire complex drowned in rolling black smoke. Russia's emergency ministry scrambled more than 200 firefighters, 50 vehicles, and 8 helicopters to fight the blaze. Roads were sealed, ambulances ringed the area, and at least 15 workers were confirmed injured, though true casualty numbers remained hidden. Rosneft initially blamed a technical malfunction and claimed the fire was under control, but social media images revealed devastation far worse than officials admitted. The Russian Defense Ministry responded by deploying additional short-range air defense units to guard other refineries, power plants, and depots across Samara Oblast. Border patrols were reinforced in an attempt to spot long-range UAVs earlier. Analysts at the Institute for the Study of War quickly labeled the strike one of Ukraine's most successful attacks on Russian oil infrastructure in 2025. The destruction of Unit 11 knocked out nearly half of Nova Kubashevsk's refining capacity, disrupting Russia's energy network. As one of Rosneft's flagship plants, it supplied fuel across the Urals and to the front lines in Ukraine. Losing 50% output forced Moscow to scramble supplies, risking shortages for tanks, aircraft, and naval forces. Western energy experts observed that every day this plant remained offline, Russia's military mobility declined. Global headlines echoed the shock. British outlets described the blast as a slash to Russia's wartime aorta, while others compared the fireball to a nuclear detonation. In Kyiv, officials offered no direct confirmation but hinted that the strike was part of a broader campaign targeting Russian energy lifelines. European analysts estimated it would take at least a month to restore even partial capacity, and that future defenses would require a complete overhaul. The lesson was undeniable. In today's battlefield, long-range, low-cost UAVs like Liuti proved that no target was truly invulnerable. Yet, as with every asymmetric strike, one successful attack alone could not collapse Russia's war machine. Moscow would rebuild, reinforce, and adapt. The real contest remained the long game, of repeated blows and counterblows, where the ultimate victor would be the one still standing. As smoke lingered over Nova Kubashevsk and refinery lines lay paralyzed, the question was no longer where Ukraine might strike next. It was, how long can Russia endure as each strike cuts deeper into the arteries of its wartime logistics?